Hey there guys, it's Salis, and today I have the pleasure of announcing to the YouTuberverse. Remember me. I'm bad at this. I was first drawn to Remember Me when I heard of the struggle Dontnod Entertainment had with their publisher Capcom to make the player character a woman. Personally, I don't think this game would have been as impressive if Capcom had won the argument and made the protagonist a male, but allow me to explain why before you show your stripes in the comments like a set of judgmental badgers. Aesthetically, Remember Me is beautiful to the point of being smug. Even the most run-down, ruined parts of Neo-Paris are still breathtaking. And the inclusion of a beautifully clean, elegantly designed area, juxtaposed nicely against the run-down ruins of the slums, where quite a lot of the game actually takes place. The starting area of the game deserves special mention here. La Bastille is one of the most perfectly designed prisons in gaming. It manages to keep both the nice and confining balls in the air at once. You see, in some games the prisons go to great lengths to make them look as imposing as possible, usually to inspire some sense of dread in the player. But this always leaves me wondering, why would anyone want to work here? But La Bastille manages to keep things looking like it would be a place where people would legitimately work, as well as being an oppressive place for the convicts contained therein. The setting does help keep this feeling going, with constantly orbiting sentry drones armed to their cyber teeth, while maintaining a clean, clinical, almost hospital-like building for the staff. Later in the game, when you get to go back and explore the upper floors, you see how much of the design has been for both looks and function. Not enough banging on about how nice it is, what happened to that smug comment from earlier? Yes, this is the big flaw which I must address like the neon green elephant tap dancing in the room. It seems when someone realised how beautiful the designs of the city were, they decided the camera should always pan up every single time you reach a new area. And you only ever reach new areas by climbing. And while most people would enjoy a good shot of Nilin's ass, the camera wants to pan slowly toward the pretty skybox. And it always wants to show you, stopping progress every time, so that you can fully appreciate its splendour. And speaking of Nilin's ass, yes, as a man I would much prefer to be looking at some lady ass, but the camera seems to take perverse pleasure in showing it to me as often as possible. I have heard this is more of an issue in the console version, but thankfully, outside of climbing sections, so I suppose not very often, the camera in the PC version can easily be positioned away from her rear cleavage with a simple move of the mouse. But when you are climbing, this option doesn't really exist. But that being said, the character models are actually very good. Nilin herself is a well-designed character in that, yes, she is a woman, but she has human proportions, instead of looking like a tree with a pair of exercise balls duct taped to it. See, games industry, if you design women to look like human beings instead of android prostitutes, we gamers will be able to treat them as such. Besides, this game already has robot prostitutes in it. So, enough about design work, how does this game feel in your ears? I will be very honest with you here, if I was here to judge solely on music, this game would score quite highly. Because the music in this is probably one of the best soundtracks to come out this year, and it does approach the soundtrack from Strike Suit Zero, and it claims a place in my heart for it. The music is perfectly placed for atmosphere, and it knows when it can be happy and relaxing or miserable and oppressive, in equal measure. And it seems at times that the score is too perfect. I found myself hanging around certain areas of the game for a while, just to hear the music in that location. So big praise deserved for the soundtrack. It's just a pity they didn't release a soundtrack edition when they released the game. But now onto the critical thing I know you all want to hear about, the voice acting. And this is where it's harder to draw a conclusion, because the first issue I have with the game is it's set in a futuristic Paris, where apparently either America invaded years before, because there's not a single French accent in the city, or humanity evolves so the entire species speaks English with a correct and approved American accent. But the second option does kind of fall apart when our protagonist Nilin, who has a distinctly Lara Croft-esque British accent, which stands out among the sea of Americans like a clown among mimes. The accent choice also gives major story spoilers, which I will get to later, but on the whole the voice acting is good. But once you've completed the game, I would recommend starting a new save file with a French track enabled, because not only does the French track sell the idea of Paris better, but I think it's generally a better performance, but I don't speak French, so what do I know? But as for individual character performances, I'd have to say the best in-game is, as you would hope, Nilin herself. And this is where having a female protagonist in the game is a good thing. Her performance allows her to convey more emotion than you would get out of your usual grizzled, manly brick shithouse that is the typical male game character. And it's this emotion that drags you in, since you spend most of the time behind the character. Being able to feel emotions without seeing facial animations is very important, because this game does have an emotionally charged story. If you're going to force me to choose a best male voice, I'd give my 10 points to Edge. His performance is perfect for his character, sometimes seeming to genuinely feel for Nilin, other times cold and emotionless, saying that the horrific things that he made Nilin do were done for a just cause. And when I say it's perfect for his character, I mean it, and you'll see why very soon. Now, as for the gameplay, it reminds me heavily of Uncharted, and even more so the latest Tomb Raider game, with most of the game spent climbing along ledges and pipes and other random objects to traverse the city. Occasionally they throw in a timing puzzle, like a rotating billboard which will throw you off the ledge if you don't time it right. But these are really underused. In any other game, these would have been an insta-death fail state. If you get thrown off, you die, etc. But in Remember Me, they're just a frustration generator, because if you lose your grip and get thrown off the top of a billboard, Nilin just grabs herself onto the bottom of it so you can slide back to the beginning and retry. Rather than being a test of any relevant skill, it's just a bit of spice added to an already well-seasoned game. And having the game literally tell you where to go all the time leaves you no room for exploration. But along with the climbing, there is combat, which looks like it was copied from the Batman Arkham series. But the person copying from their test got distracted by a dog outside the classroom window and missed the part where the combat was made to flow neatly and stylishly into bigger and better combo strings. You see, you can only have access to up to 4 differently length combos based on performance, and these have to be set in the combo lab. And you can sort of customize the moves you use, although it always comes down to a choice. Do I left click or do I right click next? In fact, most of the time the choice is a myth, because the combos you unlock require either a punch or a kick in a specific slot. And it doesn't matter which move, or should I say present, you equip, because they all do the same damage. They just look a bit different. I survived about 75% of the combat using only the pressons I unlocked really early in the game, and I never felt the need to change things up. Pressons are broken down into 4 categories. Power, which do damage. Healing, which do damage and heal you. Cooldown, which reduce the cooldown of your super moves as well as doing damage. And link pressons, which repeat whatever move was before them and amplify the effect. Also, it depends where a presson is put in the combo string as to how much damage it's likely to do the further along it is, and the later in the combo, the more damage it does. But the combos are the only way to do serious damage to the enemy, and if you're going for the big hitting 8 move combo, you will find it almost impossible to pull off. Enemies flock around you and attack from all fronts, and while they do telegraph their attack like a bright and obvious manner, it's extremely hard to watch out for attacks from all 4 fronts at once. As a result, you will often be knocked off the combo you're trying to complete, and if you don't get knocked off by enemy attacks, you'll be knocked off by the game itself. Remember Me suffers from what I like to call JRPG syndrome, in that it frequently interrupts you, normally mid-combat, and tutorializes almost everything, really late into the game as well, forcing you to bend to its diabolical will, and if you don't, you can't progress. Combat areas are also very easy to spot, because the game is more linear than a line, and every time you see a large open space instead of a narrow corridor, you just know something is going to come out of the walls with a taste of fresh breast meat. The USP for this game is memory remixing. Nilin has a unique ability to remix memories, and by that they mean she can change small details of someone's memory, thus changing the way events played out from that person's perspective, and thereby changing how the memory motivates them in the present. When I first heard this, I thought, wow, that sounds really cool, I can't wait to start changing everyone's memory. Then when I played it, I discovered this wonderful, unique, and quite artistic game mechanic is used a total of 4 times in the entire game. Once at the start, then almost not at all, until you get near the end, and the designers remember it's still a thing. Other memory abilities, which are not unique to Nilin, are however used all the time. like memory stealing for learning key information, and remembrains, which are essentially markers placed in the memory you just stole to allow you to follow a hologram of the person you just stole it from. And it also allows you to do as they did before, because, you know, it's not like now you have their memory of events, you already remember what they did. Oh wait, that's exactly what it means. So on the whole, the gameplay is good, but it's good in its separate parts, and trying to meld them all together results in mechanics being forgotten or ignored for long periods of the game, which is itself very short, about 8 hours if you don't spend hours trying to find all the collectibles and upgrades. I can't help but think that if this was a longer game, more could have been done to work all of this in, as well as fill in some of the gaps in the confusing storyline. I remember spoilers. So, it's the cyberpunk dystopian future again, but this time it deals with how social media has taken over the world, and Sen technology implanted in the spine of every Tom, Dick and douchebag on the planet has led to being able to transfer, buy, sell people's memories directly from their brain, because apparently Twitter is the downfall of the present. And you are Nilin, a memory hunter. No, they don't explain what one of those is. And an errorist. Yes, I know it's just terrorist, but someone assassinated the T to make it seem more techy. Tasked with making sure no one company can claim a monopoly on the trading of these memories. But as per all dystopias, they fucked up. And now a company called Memorize has taken 100% control over the memory market. So you of course have to shut the company down as violently as possible, but there's one problem. You were arrested and your memory was removed. So you start out completely in the dark about everything preceding your arrest. You are contacted by Edge, who helps you escape and starts reminding you who you are and what you're there for, although at this point he could be spouting absolute bollocks, but for some reason you believe him. He leads you back to the most hideously named bar, called the Leaking Brain. Gonna stop here for a moment and discuss something that crops up a lot in video games, more so than movies. Themed locales. Just because the game is about stealing memory straight out of someone's brain doesn't mean it has to be worked into key locations. It would be like a Vampire Massacre game having a bar called the Bloodbath. Do you really think Paris wouldn't still have places called things like Café Rouge or something? Anyway, back to the story. You meet up with some guy called Tommy, a former friend apparently, who gives you your clothes back and helps you out of your straitjacket. But at that point you are immediately attacked by the deadliest bounty hunter in all of Paris. But it's nothing you can't fix, you just rework her memory so that she joins the stupidly named failure movement with you. And she ends up being better at it than you do. Derp-de-doo! So after a filler mission where you kill the second best bounty hunter in all of Paris, you steal his augmented reality gun, as well as shutting down his masturbation fantasy TV show. You are then tasked to go after the head of Memorize, Mrs. Cartier-Wells, who Nilin doesn't know, but as soon as she hears her British accent and sees a young version of herself while remixing her memory, realises she just remixed her own mother. Personally, if you didn't see that spoiler coming, you must be completely mad. So after you shut down Memorize, you break back into jail to liberate the minds of your errorist friends, and after defeating the Queen of La Bastille, simply named Madame, you realise everyone else got their memories back in full and it drove them wonko. But you only got half of yours back, so you can still walk out without going nuts. This leads you to the basement, where you started the game, and you find out even though Memorize no longer wants to continue the evil memory mutation experiments, the doctor in charge has other ideas, and thinks he is better than God. So, assisted by a twisted mutant called Johnny Greenteeth, who, I'll be honest, I thought we killed earlier, and was only there as an objective marker, you kill the evil doctor, and discover Johnny is in fact Dr. Green, the inventor of, and first guinea pig of, the evil experiments. So you quickly off him too. After that, it's a dash to something called the Conception Cube. It's essentially an office built into an augmented reality version of a Borg spaceship. But not before you solve a bunch of riddles the captain of the guard was so nice to provide you with when you stole his memory, even though as stated before, you would know the solution as well if you'd just stolen his memory, and not just the riddle. Once you get into the companion cube, however, you find the last British man in Paris, Mr. Cartier-Wells, who invented Sen and the technology to extract, trade and store, as well as alter memories. You also find the server, which holds all of the world's memories, but strangely this server never needs maintenance. And that's when Edge tells you he only made you fuck up your own families so that they would both be together to open a path to the server. And then you can destroy it. As you approach the main server, Edge reveals who he really is. He is the server. Or at least he's a consolidation of the world's worst memories that developed sentience from being collected for so long. And he didn't do this to help humanity deal with pain rather than just remove it, but because he wants to die, the selfish bastard. So you use your implants, enter the server to kill Edge, only to find the server has buried Edge, and you have to face the Master Control program. Wait a minute, am I playing Remember Me or watching Tron again? Anyway, you kill this evil program in the most annoying boss fight ever, and everyone's memories are sent back to them. And considering most people drained out all their sad and painful memories, I would imagine sales in antidepressants and nooses skyrocketed worldwide at that point. So is it any good? The story itself is a bit flimsy in places. Perhaps if the game had been longer it could have established more and built a more explained foundation. But Nillen's actions in this game are heavily motivated by emotion and reaction, so you do get to feel for her. And it is quite immersive at times, but as I said, it seems like the story should have been more. As for the controls, this is going to be one of the rare occasions where I recommend a 360 pad for a PC game. The keyboard and mouse interface isn't awful per se, it just seems indecisive. Sometimes it's too loose, causing Nillen to rush over and attack a different enemy, one move off the end of your combo meaning you have to start again, and sometimes it seems oddly stiff. This is mostly while you're aiming the augmented reality gun known as the Spammer, and controlling that thing with stiff controls is about as easy and fun as crawling across barbed wire with your flies unzipped. The 360 pad however does work a lot better. It seems the game was designed for this rather than having a dedicated release on PC. So if you have one, and as a PC gamer you really should have one, then I would recommend using it. With the linearity of the game, it's not as much of a PC smasher as you would expect from a AAA title. But as always, I tested it on my big PC and on my laptop. If you're obsessed with comparative specs, you can find it all on the website. On my main rig, it was very smooth, even at max settings. I got a very nice 60-ish FPS throughout. On my laptop, however, I had to dial everything back to minimum settings, but I got about 25 to 28 FPS. So the optimization is okay. It's not perfect, but then again, what is apart from Cherry Coke? Replay value in this game is all but non-existent. Once you've beaten the game, there is no reason to go back. No New Game Plus, no bonus content. The only reason you would have to go back at all is for all the collectibles and upgrades. But since you beat the game easily without upgrades, I fail to see why you would want them. The game has the trademark scars of a game that was surgically stripped of content for DLC, and honestly I hope this isn't the case, but it is the only place they will be able to fit in any form of replay value. So what can I say about Remember Me? It's very atmospheric and has genuine characters that you can actually relate to. And despite all the issues, it does have an overall good story and a masterclass in tension. And as a new IP, which are the gaming equivalent of a unicorn carrying a bag full of gold dust, it definitely deserves your attention and support, because I feel this will be better served by a sequel than anything else out there. And once the publishers feel safe with the content, hopefully they'll be able to put some more money into it and make a bigger and better game. So, total recommendation from me. I would give Remember Me 7 out of 10. So, thank you for watching my review of Remember Me. Remember to like and favourite the video, and if you're new to discovering the channel, please hit that subscribe button for more. And as always, I've been Salis. This has been Remember Me, and I will see you next time.